Hello, welcome back to the channel. This is just a quick follow-up to a video I did a few days ago explaining what happened in Britain at Manchester Airport and these young Muslim men who seemingly were attacked by a police officer. And I was warning at the time, as most people in fairness were warning, that there's much more to the story and we shouldn't believe what the media or what narrative the media are trying to portray. And obviously it turns out, as you see on the screen, I'm playing a video, that the Muslims agitated the incident and deserved what was coming their way. They were incredibly violent. The way the geezer left hooks the woman in the nose, you could see how she had a broken nose. It was actually far worse than what I thought it would be, and clearly unacceptable behaviour. And the reason I wanted to do a quick follow-up is to say, really, is the way the establishment and the politicians and a lot of the media got behind these criminals, knowing that there was more to the story. Thing is, they didn't just have the clip. We already knew at the time, as I looked into it myself, that they'd put 3 officers in prison, but they didn't care about that. They immediately went out, officer must resign or be fired, all this stuff. And it begs the question is it worth British people paying taxes anymore? Because our governments are in direct opposition to us. It's almost like they are our enemy. If you look at the taxpayer money, it goes to funding all these illegals coming in here, putting in 4-star, 5-star hotels. It goes to Ukraine war. It goes to Israel, Palestine. It goes to all these other wars, Iraq and Afghanistan, all wars that the British people have no interest in. Our money goes to paying their exorbitant wages, of which they claim loads of extra benefits and rip off the taxpayer. It goes to the BBC propaganda, who call us all a bunch of right-wing Nazis or, conspiracy theorists if we dare to question anything. Even if we say, well, hold on, should we be letting in millions and millions and millions of illegals into our country? You're just called a racist. Now, there may be racists out there, but the majority of people are good people who just want a country ruled in a sensible way. And I do think it's time that British people set out a plan to stop paying taxes, because the British people are being ripped off. Now, I had an idea because I was looking at the church. The church is worth something like 12 billion, the Church of England. And I was thinking, what on earth are the church doing? They've got all this money. Why aren't they using it for better causes and pushing back? With the influence that the Christian church should have, with the money, the power, the influence, they should be able to push back against evil and stand up for people suffering and in pain, as a lot of British people are. We are demoralised as a nation. Most people are just completely fed up. And especially they should be pushing back against agendas that go against Christ and the Father. But they're clearly not. They're going along with them, believe it or not. So we have a government we're paying our taxes to who are fighting against us. We have a church who's the leading religion in our country who's fighting against us because they go along with the agendas as well. They want more refugees and they've fallen for the lies and they went along with the COVID scam. So that's another avenue you can't explore. Now, what I think we should do is people should set up a charity that I'd willing to set up or get involved in and use the money to serve the British people ourselves, led by men and women of God, rather than corrupt governments and corrupt religious Pharisees and scribes. If you had men of Christ and women of Christ leading the movement instead, things would get better because it would be from the Father rather than from fake politicians and fake religious people. And I always say the best way for countries and the world to be run is by a spiritual elite. For example, we don't want politicians because they're corrupted. We don't want the Pharisees because they're corrupted. We want someone like Jesus Christ, aka a men and women of Christ, wise people who love people and who want to work in service to lead the country. So we should set up a movement where taxpayers leave the system, because we get nothing out of it anyway, leave the system, pay the tax into a new system led by spiritual elite, and then belong to that instead. And that is obviously if we cannot get real good leaders within the politics. If we get good political or religious leaders, then obviously that's going to be easier. But in the meantime, we should start a separate movement and just say, look, we're not paying taxes anymore. We're going to pay taxes into this charity, and then that charity will be there to serve. We'll get doctors working for the charity rather than the NHS. And we'll get spiritual elites who can help people with mental health problems and start education systems based around spiritual values rather than our worldly nonsense, globalist, communist system we got at the moment. Okay, so that's just an idea. It's just a quick follow-up to my previous video, and it's time that British people stop paying taxes. And I'm glad to see some fight back going on. At the weekend there was protests, and I think they're good, although we're going to need to be smart to get out of the situation and use wisdom. We do not want to fall for getting too carried away in terms of violence and stuff, in terms of protests that could turn violent and anger. We need wisdom to overcome the evil that we're dealing with in our countries, and spiritual wisdom rather than earthly rage and anger, which is good to have, the anger that our countries are being messed up, but we need the wisdom of spiritual, wise people to overcome the problems. Okay, so usual stuff. Like the video if you like it. Comment below if you have any other ideas that could help our Western nations overcome this problem. Subscribe for more if you're new, and God bless everyone. Goodbye.